There is a trend now in the Western world, which I would like to touch, being a da'i. There's a trend in the Western world where previously, maybe 20 years back, 15 years back, it was different. People used science, logic, and reason to prove the Quran, to prove the Hadith, to do dawa. In certain parts of certain Western countries, it's changing. And that reminds me that one of the da'is, he used to use logic, but when someone asked him the question about qadar, about destiny, that if Allah is the one who writes the destiny, then Allah is to blame. If someone kills, who's to blame? Allah is to blame. If he knows, he writes the destiny, is to blame. So because he could not answer logically, he says Allah doesn't have ilm ghaib. And everyone gave the fatwa of kufr to him. I won't take his name. I met him and I said, what are you doing? Akhi, what are you doing? And then I explained to him, because this is a very difficult question about qadar. And I gave him the explanation. He agreed he made a mistake, but he had done the blunder. He said, Allah doesn't have ilm ghaib. So now you find in this trend, the first important point to be noted, that always Quran is number one. Quran is the haqq. In source of knowledge, number one is Quran. Number two is the authentic hadith. Then will come reason, logic, science, all are below that. So we as da'is, we as Muslims, we always believe the best source of knowledge is the Quran. There is not a minute error in the Quran. There is not a single defect in the Quran. Next comes the authentic hadith. In hadith, you have to be careful because the hadith is sahih, it is saif, it is mawdu. So as far as sahih hadiths are concerned, we believe even that is authentic and it is true. Now, while doing dawah, whatever knowledge we have, whatever reasoning we have, whatever logic we have, whatever scientific knowledge we have, if it contradicts with the Quran or the hadith, we should not place the logic above Quran and hadith. Unfortunately, this trend is changing in the Western world. And some of the Muslim du'ats, one is a very close friend of mine, and because he could not answer logically the questions posed by certain Muslims influenced by the Western society or by non-Muslims, he started saying that logic and reason is not the basis of dawah. And he said that verbal dawah, verbally talking, is not the fundamental of dawah. And no one converts because of reason and logic. Now Quran, the whole book of Quran is on reason and logic. 332 times Allah says, Waqalu, they say. And 332 times Allah replies, Qul, tell them. It's a question answer book. Afala yuminun, will you not then believe? Afala yuminun, will you not then understand? The Quran is filled up with these verses. Will you not then understand? Will you not then believe? It is for men of reasoning and logic. Many verses. So now, because we have to understand that our knowledge, our scientific knowledge, our medical knowledge, our reasoning, our logic is limited. When it clashes with the Quran or with the Sahih Hadith, the Quran is always on top. Then you start giving statements. And one such, then you have two types of people. One type of people start saying the information of the Quran is not correct. The other type of people, they say, don't use science while doing dawah. So now there's a group emerging in the Western world, which used to use science before. Now they say, don't use science for dawah. I said, why? So they will disagree with this topic. Tibbi Nabwi, understanding the approach of prophetic healing. They'll disagree. Why are you giving a talk on science and medicine? Why are you giving a talk on Quran and modern science? Last year in this conference, I gave a talk on Quran and modern science. They'll disagree. They're saying we should not use science for doing dawa. The reason is because I feel that they've been so much influenced by the Western culture. Some of them got PhDs in Western society, so they trained them in PhD how to think logically. So then they drift away from the Islamic thinking, unfortunately. Therefore, I'm not too much in favor of Muslims doing their Muslim PhD in non-Muslim countries with non-Muslim guides. It's not haram. I know many people, mashallah, who have done from non-Muslim countries, non-Muslim guides, and they're very good dais. But there are chances that you may deviate. So one group of dais, they say you should not use science at all. And some of them say Quran is wrong. And one such important aspect of Quran, also hadith, is that we believe the Quran says, and the hadith says in various places, that the first human being is Adam alayhi salam. But today, modern science, according to the theory of natural selection, according to Charles Darwin, that we have been evolved from primates, from apes. And about 20 years back, or 30 years back, it was different. There were many scientists. But today, the science has come more closer to believing in this theory of evolution. But do you know today, you can just check up Google or ChatGPT, what is the percentage of Americans that do not believe in Darwin's theory? The answer is 34%. According to the PEW report, it says 30 to 35% of the Americans, they believe that Darwin's theory is not correct. According to the Gallup report, they say 37% of the Americans, they do not agree with Darwin's theory to be correct. Now, this is a common man. Now, common man in the Western world, 1/3 of them, or more than 1/3, do not believe that Darwin's theory is correct. Those that believe Darwin's theory is correct may be more than 50%. Some are unknown. Now, if 34 or 35% of the Western world doesn't believe, why are you telling the Muslims? You should believe in Darwin's theory. There are guys who are giving lectures. I give a scientific lecture proving Darwin's theory wrong. They come and ask me, but that's so-and-so sheikh. He says we Muslims should agree with Darwin's theory. How can we? I don't believe in taking names of du'ats. The person is a close friend of mine. I spoke to him personally. He considers me to be, or used to consider me to be his elder and to be his guide. I told him, what are you doing on Darwin? No, I said, I do agree. I'm a medical doctor. I'm more qualified than you on speaking on this. Yes, there are parts of Darwin's theory, like everything is evolved from water, and Quran says that same. وَجَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ hai. In Surah Anbiya chapter 20 verse number 30, we have created everything from water. Will you not then believe? But everything and the main core, we are not evolved from apes. No, I agree, we are not evolved from apes. He says, I agree, we are not evolved from apes. Then why are you telling the Muslim to believe in theory of evolution? So what we realize that the dai to be more popular in the Western world, to agree with the society, he many a times deviates away from the Quran and deviates away from the Sunnah, saying hijab is not required, you can shake hands with women, and so on and so forth. We won't go into the topic. On the other hand, some du'as say, you should not use science as a tool. I said, why? I make it very clear, as a student of comparative religion, as a student of science, as a student of Islam, I make it very clear when I give, and I made it clear when I gave the lecture last year, on Quran and modern science, compatible or incompatible, I gave a caveat in the starting that Quran is a book of science, S-I-G-N-S. It's not a book of science, S-C-I-E-N-C-E. And there are more than thousands of science ayats in the Quran, out of which more than 1,000 speak about science, S-C-I-E-N-C. And I told there is not a single verse in the Quran which goes against established scientific fact. But it can go against scientific theories. If you understand what is the difference between a scientific fact and a scientific theory, your vision will be broad. There is not a single verse in the Quran which goes against established scientific fact. What is a scientific fact by definition? Scientific fact is an objective, repeated, provable, and verifiable observation of a natural phenomena. That means a scientific fact is said to be a fact which is objectively, it can be verified and proven by observation of a natural phenomena. What's a scientific theory? A scientific theory is an proven, evidence-based explanation of the phenomena. So fact is data, scientific fact is data, and scientific theory is explanation. For example, an object when dropped, it falls. It's a scientific fact. What is the explanation? Theory of gravity. The fact will never change. When you drop an object, it will fall. A scientific fact does not change. A scientific theory may change, may not change. Mostly it changes. The explanation is added. Many a times it is disproved. Wrong. A scientific theory can change and usually changes. Sometimes it changes, the explanation is added. Sometimes it is disproved. Today we know that if we compare between the common masses and the scientific people, today the scientific community 40, 50 years back was different. Today, 97% of the scientific community believe in theory of evolution, the theory of natural selection. But yet, there are 2-3% of the scientists that disagree with it. For me, even if 100% of the scientific community believe in the theory, scientific theory, if it goes against the Quran, I will reject it. Because the Quran is from Allah. The scientific theory is from human beings. And in the past, so I tell the dais, just because today, in the past, you had thousands of scientists which were disagreeing with theory of evolution, natural selection. Today, 97% of the scientists agree. So what? Do you start disbelieving in the Quran? Do you start disbelieving in the Hadith? I tell them, use your logic. Differentiate between a scientific fact and a scientific theory. A scientific fact will never change. Heart pumping blood is a scientific fact, observable. You can check it. It's a phenomena. There are umpteen numbers of established scientific theories which today have been proved wrong. Many. For example, we previously believed in the theory of geocentrism. Many centuries back, the world believed that our earth was the center of the universe and the planets revolved around it. They believed it for hundreds of years. Today, do we believe it? Yes or no? No. For hundreds of years we believed it. Previously we believed in the static universe theory. Static universe theory means the universe doesn't expand, doesn't contract. It is same. After many years, today no one believes in that static universe theory. Then there is a steady state theory. In the steady state universe theory, the universe is expanding. It's expanding, but it doesn't have a beginning. The density remains the same. It's called a steady state, expanding, but has no beginning. Today, people don't believe in that. Today, the most famous theory of the creation of universe is the Big Bang. What does it say? That initially there was a primary nebula. The full universe was a primary nebula. Then there was a secondary separation, a Big Bang, which gave rise to galaxies, the stars, the sun, the earth on which we live. Big Bang. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 30, that do not the unbelievers see? أَوَلَمْ يَلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتْ رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا. That do not the unbelievers see that the heaven and the earth were joined together and we clove them asunder. Now this is matching with the Big Bang. So I use it. I use certain scientific theories. If it's matching with the Quran, I agree with it. Because Allah, our creator, for me it's a fact. Allah says in the Quran, Allah observed it. He was the creator. For him it's a fact. He narrates it. For us as a Muslim, we believe in it. So when the Quranic verse or the hadith matches with a scientific theory, you have to be careful. Number one, you have to be careful in which part of the theory you agree. Tomorrow, if the Big Bang theory changes to something else, maybe something else, but the core part, فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا, that they were joined together and Allah clothed messenger, will never change. Why? Allah said it. So when I agree with Big Bang may evolve tomorrow. The Big Bang theory may evolve tomorrow. How many years back it happened, whether 13 billion years or 40, it may change. But that will not change the information of the Quran. So you should know when you're agreeing with, you say, I agree with only this part of the Big Bang. The core part. Later on, whether it took place 13.8 billion years before or 15, Allah Alam. Because Quran doesn't give the date. Quran doesn't give the period it took place. So we as Muslims, we only agree with that part what the Quran says. So I use a theory in my talk if it matches with the Quranic verse or the Sahih Hadith. But I have to be careful. That is it an established theory? For example, there was a theory that all human beings came from one pair of genes. It matches with the verse of the Quran. That we have created you from a single pair. But I never use that. Why? It's not an established theory. It matches with the Quran. But why should I use that theory which is not established? So I'm careful when I'm using the theory to match it with the Quran or not. If it's an established theory, I take that part of the theory which is exactly matching with the Quran or the Hadith and agree with it, not the full theory. So if you are careful as a student of science, as a da'i, as a Muslim, in knowing how to use science, there is no problem using science for dawa or giving a lecture on Quran and modern science or giving a lecture on Tibb-e-Nabwi. So while giving lectures on science, you have to be careful. If you know your subject well, it's a very good tool. Because Quran says that, will they not then believe? So this is one of One of the good tools. I'm not saying the only tool. But because today is the age of science and technology, it may not have been the best tool 50 years back or 100 years back. Because today is the age of science and technology, we cannot not use this important tool. So I always tell my students, be careful, don't go overboard, don't be so much impressed by the Western world. You be careful. Number one is Quran. Then is the Hadith, Sahih Hadith. Then is reason, logic and science. So if you know this order well, inshallah, you'll never go wrong.